My fusion system, fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapter 281, I'd rather be an idiot. At the hot spring in Golden Quill Pavilion. A few men moaned comfortably in the hot spring that was filled with water vapor. Golden Quill Pavilion is truly a paradise. Our adventurer team was only bronze tier. They would only put us at the furthest point whenever we come here, let alone the hot spring. And they would serve us simple food too. Now that we've achieved the gold tier adventurer status, they let these special ladies serve us. Arthur sat in the hot spring, his body wrapped in a modest towel. Behind him, a lovely maid was scrubbing his back diligently. Clyde and Leon were also in the hot spring near him. They nodded in accord as they heard his words. It's all thanks to young Master Watson. Our treatment in the Golden Quill Pavilion and the City of Steel has changed. With young Master Watson on our team, we will improve even more in the future. We should drink to our heart's content and celebrate properly. A few maids surrounded Clyde, they knelt on their knees and gently massaged his tall and sturdy body with their tiny hands. Honorable Mr. Clyde, the wine you requested has arrived. This is the top quality red wine that the Golden Quill Pavilion has prepared for the few gold tier adventurers. A maid entered from outside the hot spring shortly after Clyde's voice faded. She held a tray in her hand that had a bottle of red wine, it looked exquisitely packed. That scene led the three men to sigh once again at the service provided by the Golden Quill Pavilion. Let's drink to a beautiful tomorrow together. Speaking of the team's future, do you still remember what young Master Watson said about clearing the maze's 100th floor? Arthur raised his glass and spoke as the maid distributed glasses of wine to everyone there. Clyde and Leon nodded. They also raised their glasses and took a sip. Leon said, Arthur, what do you want to say? Even though our team has become better because of young Master Watson, he will occasionally say some unrealistic promises. How is it possible to go so deep into the maze's 100th floor underground? He also said that he wants to improve our strength and let us help him. Only that foolish woman, Annie, would believe such words. Since she hasn't come out after such a long time, young Master Watson must have entangled himself with her. She's here at the Golden Feather Pavilion, but she can't enjoy it. What a pity! Yes, what a pity! Clyde and Leon glanced at the beautiful maid, whose clothes were exposed, they could not help but swallow their saliva. Perhaps it was the alcohol, but they felt as though their body's blood circulation had increased significantly. They might each take a handmaiden and get a room with them after their soak in the hot spring. As adventurers, particularly low-tier adventurers like them, they were frequently under pressure to take risks. Seeking out ladies to accompany them was a very natural way for them to relieve stress. Since they had a female member in the team, they typically conducted such activities in secret. However, they could do so freely in the Golden Quill Pavilion. The service and ladies there were superior to those they had encountered previously. The most important thing was that the pavilion had preferential treatment for gold tier adventurers, they did not even need to spend any money. Arthur, Leon, and Clyde smiled lewdly when they realized they could embrace those plump bodies dripped with fragrance and freely frolic with them later. They felt as if they were in heaven, but they pitied Annie, who could not come out to enjoy herself. A slightly disgusted female voice suddenly echoed from outside the hot spring just as they thought about that. I heard some disgusting sounds from a distance from the hot spring. It was you guys, indeed. I won't say anything about you, Arthur, this is your usual dirty self. But Captain, Leon. Why are you behaving like this? Especially you, Leon. Aren't you a devout priest? Can your God forgive you for such an act? Annie materialized at the hot spring's edge. Her silhouette was obscured by the white mist from the hot spring, they could not see her clearly. Annie, what are you talking about? Who's dirty? Speak clearly, you. Arthur was the first to react when he heard Annie's words. He held a wine glass in one hand and gripped a towel around his waist in the other as he left the hot spring in Annie's direction with a displeased expression. He finally saw Annie clearly after halfway toward her. His jaw dropped as he stood frozen on the spot. He was so shocked that the wine glass in his hand fell to the ground. "Arthur, what's wrong with you? You look scared. Is Annie not wearing any clothes? Annie, since you're here, you should enjoy yourself. There are beautiful maids and handsome male servants here." Clyde stood up and walked out of the hot spring. When he reached the same spot as Arthur, he stopped as his face exhibited an incredulous expression. Finally, Leon said, "Annie, Captain is right. The god of light that I believe in also said that long-term abstinence is not a good thing. It's better to enjoy yourself here than to be forced to chat in the room." He walked toward Annie. Then, he had the same expression as Arthur and Clyde. Annie was not naked. Instead, it was her clothing that astounded them. Annie stood in front of them, hands on her hips. She was dressed in a fiery red feather coat that fell to her feet. The feathers around her neck were particularly thick, and a scarf shaped like two wings fluttered on both sides of Annie's body, giving her the appearance of a fire goddess. Apart from the clothing on her body, Annie had changed as well. Annie had been the weakest member of the Blood Rose adventurer team. She was an ordinary bronze tier mage, compared to them, who were already at the peak of bronze tier. However, Annie had changed. She radiated an incomprehensible and overwhelming aura, rendering the three men incapable of guessing her exact strength. However, it was evident that she had beyond bronze tier. "Annie, what happened? Where did you get that armor? And how did you get stronger so suddenly? Are you a silver tier mage now?" Clyde was the first to react, and he could not help but ask in surprise. A mage's training entailed an understanding of the world's magical elements and strengthening the connection between the soul and magic. Some mages could immediately grasp certain world views. It was not uncommon for their strength to increase exponentially, and he believed it was very likely the case with Annie. To his surprise, Annie shook her head. "Captain Clyde, you've misunderstood. I did not advance to silver tier, I am now gold tier. I am now a gold tier mage. My armor, including the increase in my strength, was made possible because of young Master Watson." Annie's face was flushed with pride as she spoke. She cast a glance at her three companions, who were becoming increasingly shocked, and she smiled. Watson had fulfilled his promise to help her to advance to gold tier. She had managed to propel from bronze to gold tier in a single step. Even though she had no idea how Watson did it, the surge of energy coursing through her body assured her that all she had experienced was real. Thus, after expressing gratitude to Watson, she proceeded to the hot spring. She was ready to inform Clyde and the other two men about the situation so that they could seek Watson's help in increasing their strength. However, before she reached the hot spring, she heard the three men criticizing her with her sharp hearing. They said that she did not know how to enjoy herself and was an idiot. They even laughed at her for listening to Watson's nonsense. She was unhappy when she heard those words. However, the idiot they mentioned had transformed into a powerful gold tier mage. She even had gold tier equipment on her. Well, she would prefer to be an incurable idiot if that was what it took to reach her progress. Chapter 282, Too Late for Regrets. "Annie, did young Master Watson help you achieve that? Quickly, tell me how he did it." Clyde asked anxiously. He already regretted his decision. If he had known that staying by Watson's side would really increase his strength, he would not have gone to the hot spring. He was particularly taken aback when he noticed the flames on Annie's body and the magnificent feathers radiating high temperatures. He felt much more miserable when he considered how he might have obtained one too. "I'm not sure how young Master Watson did it. I just saw him use the leather armor that I took off and cast a spell to duplicate it into thousands of pieces. Then, they were fused and turned into the armor that I'm wearing now. As for the method to increase my strength, it's even simpler. Young Master Watson picked an iron tier medicinal herb by the roadside and used the same method to fuse it into a gold tier herb for me. After I ate it, I immediately became a gold-tier mage, Annie said softly as she placed her finger on her lips and recalled the scene just now. Is she for real? The three of them looked at each other, their eyes filled with disbelief. Annie said that the armor was replicated and then fused into a stronger one. Then, she said that Watson had picked a random herb and turned it into gold-tier medicine for her to consume, after which she had advanced to the gold tier. If it had been that easy, the gold-tier adventurers in the City of Steel would not be famed as the top adventurers. Do you not believe me? It doesn't matter, I can prove it to you. It was as if she could read their minds. Annie chuckled and took a step forward. Boom! There was no sound but a colossal aura spread from Annie's body. Then, she stretched her right index finger and said, Bronze tier fire elemental spell, exploding fireball. The symbol of a gold tier mage was concurrent spells. The spell, which initially required a lengthy incantation, appeared in Annie's hand instantly. Furthermore, compared to the spell that she had cast before, at that moment, the explosive fireball was much larger and more powerful. The massive fireball, which was half the size of a house, floated above Annie's head. The hot temperature instantly reduced the amount of water in the hot spring by 1/10, and even the hard rocky ground began to turn red and hot. It made Clyde and the others grimace in pain. That's enough, Annie. We believe that you've become a gold-tier mage. Put away that spell. Clyde shouted as he hugged his feet. Whether it was the spell's strength or the aura emitted from Annie's body, she was undoubtedly a gold-tier mage. At that moment, if the spell in Annie's hand had landed on the Golden Quill Pavilion, it would be enough to blow it up. After he finished speaking, Annie extinguished the exploding fireball. Annie, you've really advanced to gold tier. That is too surreal. Arthur sat on the ground of the gradually cooling hot spring, rubbing the blisters that had burned the soles of his feet. In the beginning, when young Master Watson said he would help me to become a gold tier mage, I did not dare to believe it either. However, that is the truth. On the other hand, none of you believed young Master Watson's words. You guys are having a lot of fun here. Initially, I wanted to tell you to ask young Master Watson to increase your strength. But perhaps you should stay here and let these maids serve you. I'll look for young Master Watson myself and see if I can increase my strength further. Annie snorted coldly and turned around to leave, but Clyde and the others refused to let her go after hearing her statements. Annie, please do not leave yet. We've worked hard all day and have come here to unwind. Who said we don't believe in young Master Watson's words? Clyde smiled with an awkward expression. Really? When I arrived here, I overheard someone say that young Master Watson's words are implausible and that such words would sway only a foolish woman like myself. Who made that assertion? Arthur's attitude shifted as Annie's voice grew faded. He was the one who had said those things. Clyde also frowned as he looked at Arthur. Arthur, how can you do that? We owe a debt to young Master Watson. If you don't believe me, then forget it. Why did you say it out loud? You fabricated lies about young Master Watson on purpose. Why aren't you apologizing? Clyde hurriedly turned his head to look at Annie and said, Annie, those were Arthur's words. It has nothing to do with me. Take me to young Master Watson, please. I wish to increase my strength and get a complete set of gold tier equipment. Arthur was so angry that his lips trembled. He stretched his hand outward and pointed at Clyde, not knowing what to say. Clyde was far too despicable. He had thrown Arthur under the bus because he wanted Watson's help. However, he could understand Clyde. If there were a chance he could become a gold tier elite, he would also disregard everything else. Captain, don't say things like that. You were the one who told me to stay here and enjoy myself. You also said to find me a male servant. Annie pointed the spear at Clyde, who stuttered, I. After a while, Annie looked at Leon. And you, Leon? You agreed with the captain's words just now. You even said that enjoying yourself here is better than talking to young Master Watson. You even said that it was the doctrine left behind by the God you believe in, right? Leon's face flushed red as he lowered his head. It's not that I don't want you to look for young Master Watson. But, just look at all of you. What right do you have to ask young Master Watson to help you improve your strength? If it were me, I would definitely feel embarrassed. The men could not raise their heads, they were ashamed. Then, Annie sighed. But young Master Watson is a generous person. If you go over there now and apologize properly, perhaps he would be willing to help you. Really? When they heard those words, all three of their eyes lit up simultaneously, and they raced out without saying a word. A maid, who was responsible for serving them at the hot spring, asked, "Dear adventurers, are you sure you don't want to stay here and continue to enjoy our service?" Beautiful women were insignificant when compared to the prospect for them to advance to gold tier. "Captain, don't get changed so quickly. Wait for me. Arthur, you still have the nerve to talk about others. Aren't you changing your clothes quickly too?" "Captain Clyde and Arthur, I don't care if you wear your clothes fast or slow. But can I trouble you not to wear my clothes?" Clyde and Arthur fought to change their clothes in the locker room, regardless of whose clothes were in their hands. Leon complained in dissatisfaction as he squeezed his way into the room. The three men were in a mess. Annie, outside the locker room, was speechless. At the same time, in the top level of the Holy Sword Adventurer team's office. "Lady Sword Mistress, you asked me to investigate the whereabouts of the boy named Watson. I have some news for you." Blake knelt on one knee and spoke respectfully to the beautiful girl whose back was toward him. The girl stood in front of a huge French window, enjoying the scenery of the entire city of steel. Then, she turned around nervously. "Is that so? Tell me where he is." Even though everyone is saying that the Blood Rose members left by carriage, and that carriage was seen on many streets, I think they are trying to trick us. Get to the point. "Watson's is at the Golden Quill Pavilion. Our spy there reported that they saw them enter the building." Boom. A muffled sound was heard immediately after Blake finished speaking. Christina's French window shattered, and many sword energies spilled outward. Christina had transformed into a giant bird and leaped from the window, vanishing into the skies. Only Blake remained in the room. He rushed to the window, gazed down at the panicked street mob, and sighed with his hand on his brow. "I know that the sword mistress thinks highly of Watson, but I haven't told her where he is in the Golden Feather Pavilion. Why is she in such a hurry?" Chapter 283, A Romantic Encounter in the Hot Spring. At the Golden Quill Pavilion. "Young Master Watson, we did not believe you when you said that you would help us increase our strength. It's our ignorance. Please forge a set of gold equipment for each of us and increase our strength to gold." The three of them knelt in front of Watson in the room. Watson was holding a teacup in his hand. He looked at the three people in front of him who were half-dressed. Their sleeves were hanging off their body, and their pants were on inside out. He did not know whether to laugh or to cry. Annie stood behind the three of them. She hugged her shoulders and said coldly, "Are the three of you asking for young Master Watson's help?" "I'm sorry, young Master Watson. We know we're in the wrong. We won't talk about you behind your back anymore. We won't sneak out to enjoy ourselves anymore. If you help us improve our strength, we'll follow you down to the 100th, or 200th, floor of the maze. It doesn't even matter if we die there." Then, the three of them kowtowed with a face full of regret. "There's no need for that. I have no intention of restricting you from having fun. After all, you are here to enjoy yourself. As for helping you to increase your strength, I will definitely do what I said." As he put down the empty teacup, he gestured for Denise to add some tea leaves for him. Then, Watson waved his hand at the three people in front of him. "Really? Young Master Watson, you are a good person." As he felt their gazes, Watson said, "Don't be too happy yet. Even though I said I would help you increase your strength, I've already used up my wishes today. Therefore, I'm afraid that you won't be able to increase your strength." "How could that be?" The light in the men's eyes instantly dimmed. They subconsciously looked at Annie, their eyes pleaded with her. If they could restrain their inner desires or be like Annie and trusted in Watson's words, they would have become a gold-tier elite, not Annie. They were driven mad with envy when they saw Annie, who had been the weakest member of the team. Annie ignored them. She turned around and said, "Serves you right. Of course, it's not like there's no way out." At that moment, Watson interjected. His words lifted their mood. They cursed in their hearts. If Watson had a way out, he could have said it earlier. They had worried for nothing, thinking that they had missed a great opportunity. "I can help you improve your abilities, but you must give me enough equipment and medicinal herbs. The amount of improvement depends on the number of materials you can give me. Don't worry, young Master Watson. We'll go to our homes here in the City of Steel to get the weapons and medicinal herbs for you. We'll bring everything we have with us." The three of them ran outside hurriedly. They had been adventurers in the City of Steel for many years. They were not rich, but they had a certain amount of savings, including a home in the City of Steel. They decided to offer the weapons and medicinal herbs they have and all the valuable things in their home. They did not even plan to keep their house if they could advance to gold tier. If that were not enough, they would borrow money from other people. After they thought about that, the three men rushed out of the room in a few seconds. Many passers-by looked at them strangely because of their odd appearance. "I haven't finished speaking, why did they leave so fast?" Watson looked at Annie. "Miss Annie, please catch up to those three and tell them. Regardless of whether they can gather the necessary materials or not, I plan to increase their strength either way. Don't tell other people, or I won't help any of you." "Understood, young Master Watson. I'll go and inform them right away." Annie nodded as she chased after them. "Young Master Watson, is that a good idea? Even if they are very tight-lipped, if someone wanted to investigate this, they would still discover the secret to their increase in strength," Denise asked worriedly after Clyde and the rest had left. "It doesn't matter. In any case, I won't be staying in this city for too long. As long as I can hold on for some time, it will be enough. Furthermore, compared to raiding the underground city by myself, their help will minimize the risk. If someone still wants to target me, I'll accept it." Watson shrugged. Then, Denise nodded. She thought his words made sense. She said, "Let's not talk about that for now." Miss Nightingale sent a message saying that she and Master Antonio had completed their mission and had gotten rid of all the stalkers. "They're on their way here. They'll probably arrive in a few minutes. Tell Nightingale to go to the hot spring to find me. Clyde and the others are not here, so I'm going to take a good bath." "Denise, are you going?" "I want to discuss the next arrangements after Master Antonio comes back, so I'll pass." 10 minutes later, in the hot spring. Watson sat alone in the hot spring. He was surrounded by mist. He stretched his arms and leaned his head against the rock beside the hot spring. Comfortable. There were no other maids in the hot spring. He did not like to be stared at by strangers while he took a bath, so he dismissed them. Although the maids looked very pitiful before they left, he did not show them any mercy. "Nightingale will come in a few minutes. I'll give her a good scare." He had not planned to bring any maids with him, but Sylvan insisted he brought Nightingale along. The young woman had worked tirelessly as a coachman and helped him complete his mission, which made him feel a little guilty. He had mixed feelings about Nightingale. She was the assassin who had once tried to kill him, the Black Moon Knight's first teacher, and his friend. In addition, he had some special feelings for her. Without a doubt, Nightingale was an important person to Watson. He did not like to be served by the people from the Golden Quill Pavilion, but he would not dislike it if Nightingale served him. It was better to say that he hoped that Nightingale would return soon. Nightingale is so slow. Watson rolled his eyes and thought of a good idea. He removed his clothes from the hot spring, pinched his nose, and sank into the pool in the hot spring. He was a Platinum Tier elite and had mastered the water elemental combat aura. He could hold his breath in the water for a few days and still be okay. Sure enough, it's best to soak in the hot spring alone, Christina muttered to herself as she took off her clothes and looked at her plump body in front of a mirror in the changing room. Her figure was well proportioned, and every muscle in her arms and thighs was full of strength because of her years of training. It feels like my breasts have grown bigger again. Reaching out her hand to support the two round spheres in front of her chest, Christina showed a somewhat distressed expression. As a female swordsman, having too big a chest would affect her speed and balance. If she continued to develop, she would have to use a corset. Christina looked somewhat distressed as she extended her hand to support her breasts. Huge bosoms might impair her speed and balance as a swordswoman. If they continued to grow, she would need to wear a corset. With that thought in mind, she observed herself in the mirror a few more times before she wrapped herself in a towel and walked toward the hot spring. Before she went there, she had confirmed that none of the maids were there. The hot spring was reserved for the gold tier elites, so very few people could use it, except for Christina. She was confident it would be empty. She was a woman, so she loved to pamper herself. Christina looked around the area when she walked into the hot spring and saw no clothes or aura. She sighed in relief as she removed the towel from her body. As a new Platinum Tier elite, her five senses were so sharp that she could detect any movement within a few hundred meters. She had searched about 100 meters of the surrounding area, but there was no one around. She loved the quiet atmosphere very much. Naked, Christina slid into the hot spring. Her hands and swan-like neck were stretched and leaned against the edge of the bath. At that moment, her toes seemed to have touched something, an electric current passed through her body. Who's there? Chapter 284, A Fierce Battle. Watson pinched his nose and dived into the hot spring. He reached out and touched the pearly white feet, which immediately shrank back as if they were electrocuted. He found it funny, thinking that Nightingale was too sensitive. Who's there? At that moment, a woman's voice echoed from above Watson's head. It reached the water through the surface. His face changed because the voice did not sound like Nightingale's. At the same time, he found another strange thing: Nightingale did not seem to be wearing any clothes. Her smooth feet were connected to her round and smooth calves. On top of that, her plump thighs were crossed, and one could vaguely see her perky buttocks. It was not just the towel. The woman did not even wear any underwear, which made Watson feel a little incredulous. If that were Nightingale, she would be embarrassed to see him without any clothes on. If it were not Nightingale, who was that person? Was it the maid who he had dismissed? Watson was puzzled and was about to rush out of the hot spring when a terrible force suddenly fell from above his head. It was a sharp sword aura that wanted to cut the entire hot spring and him. Christina's face was red when she raised her right hand and hacked furiously at the hot spring, aiming at a faint shadow beneath it. When she entered the hot spring, she looked around and discovered that it was deserted. However, she felt someone touch her feet after entering the bath. She initially thought it was an illusion, but a peculiar sensation on her feet made her realize something was amiss. She concentrated her efforts on probing the surface of the water and discovered a person lurking in the hot spring. However, she could not see who it was. She trembled in anger. Who dares to ambush me as I soak in the hot spring? Whoever you are, D*MN pervert, go to hell. Christina's physique radiated a brilliant light elemental combat aura as she spoke. It wrapped around her and transformed into a warm, luminous robe that concealed her bare body. The entire hot spring was ripped open by her sword aura, revealing Watson's form below. You! Christina's face contorted as she looked at the youth who had appeared in front of her and realized it was the person she would look for later. Her gaze became sharper, and the corners of her mouth twisted into a smile. She was there to find a way to put Watson's strength to the test and spar with him. Even if the setting was a little awkward as they had met at the hot spring, it was still a fantastic chance. After all, she did not require an excuse to fight. What brings you here, Miss Christina? Watson realized who it was when he stood up. It was Christina. He also had a surprised expression on his face. At the time, Christina had used a light elemental combat aura to cover her body. Even though it covered most of her flesh, one could still see her plump contour through the soft light. Watson did not think much before he realized that Christina's sword aura had already arrived in front of him. That sword aura was not as powerful as Christina's attack on him in the Adventurers Association during the day, but he was not wearing platinum tier armor at the moment. As a result, Watson elected to employ the diamond tier absolute defense spell in response to that attack. A protective barrier in the shape of a semi-transparent polygon appeared on his body with a swoosh. A hexagonal seal was used to create each protective barrier. When the sword aura made contact with the shield, it made a faint sound and was instantly repelled. Watson, when I saw you at the Adventurers Association, I thought of you as a young and promising adventurer. I did not expect you to be a pervert. You deliberately waited here to ambush me and even peeked at my body. You're quite bold. Christina thought she was right when she saw Watson parry the sword aura she had casually discharged. Watson was a platinum tier elite, yet he pretended to snort coldly. Indeed, Christina was unconcerned that someone had seen her naked, believing that a person's body was merely a skin. It was irrelevant whether it was attractive or not. What mattered was whether that body could develop into a razor-sharp weapon as she became stronger. Miss Christina, you've misunderstood me. I did not mean to peek at you. I was lying in ambush, but I did not expect you to be here, Watson explained helplessly. He felt very aggrieved. He had planned to ambush Nightingale, but who could have guessed that the Holy Sword Adventurer team's captain had appeared instead? Furthermore, she was naked. He wondered why the mates did not inform him. Watson had transmigrated to the world in the body of a 10-year-old boy, and he was 12 years old then. He had lost his indifference to matters between men and women. He recalled the scene where he saw Christina bathed naked in the hot spring. He noticed how his nostrils had burned, and a trace of bright red liquid began to flow. He was suffocating in the hot spring. Dribble. Misunderstanding? Why would your nose bleed if it were a misunderstanding? Additionally, you said that you intended to ambush someone here. Do you believe that attacking ladies is okay regardless of who you ambush? Then, Christina spread out her dazzling combat aura wings on her back and shouted softly, Light Elemental Law of Domain, activate. A vast, bright domain materialized beneath her feet. One of the simple-looking thin swords landed in Christina's hand. The domain's thin sword was very similar to the sky-severing weapon she employed during the day. Watson, don't think that I will let you off easily after doing such a thing. Copy the sky-severing blade and attack. If Christina did not mind it just now, she felt a little embarrassed when she saw Watson's nose bled as if he was reminiscing about something. She controlled the law domain and attacked Watson. The power of that sword attack was not inferior to the one she had used during the day. The sword aura pierced through the entire hot spring and flew straight into the sky. The hot spring's rocky ground was cut open, and the clouds in the sky were also broken. Dark Elemental Law of Domain, activate. Watson could only stomp his feet as he realized Christina had no intention of stopping. A vast dark world appeared beneath his feet, the polar opposite of the brilliant domain beneath Christina's. Watson waved his hand to activate the pitch-black domain, and a ball of pitch-black fog wriggled out of the realm. It transformed into a black sword blade in his hand and swept out, easily dispelling Christina's sword aura. That attack was just an ordinary attack, but it was on par with Christina's. Over the past 2 years, he had been receiving guidance from Elvira, Nightingale, and other warriors on Mount Creation. He had trained hard, and that effort was not in vain. I did not expect you to be not only a platinum tier elite but also to have a dark combat aura. It seems like we are natural enemies. In that case, I don't need to hold back. The two opposing domains clashed. Obviously, the domain under Christina's feet had fallen into a disadvantage, constantly cracking and even collapsing. However, she did not care at all. Instead, her eyes were burning with a desire to fight. She extended her right hand and clenched it fiercely toward Watson. The next move is the strongest move I have mastered so far. The heart is the bone of the sword, and the sword forges the body. That body is perched atop Sword Hill. Platinum tier combat technique, infinite sword slash. The light domain beneath Christina's feet gleamed brightly as she moved. Each light weapon assumed the form of a sky-severing blade. At the same time, hundreds of sky-severing blades ascended into the sky, transforming into shooting stars. Their might shook the entire world. Chapter 285, Nightingale's Misunderstanding. The domain under Watson's feet could have suppressed Christina, but after she used a platinum tier battle technique, the dark elemental domain of darkness beneath his feet was instantly compressed and then collapsed with a heavy sound. His expression revealed a trace of surprise. That was his first encounter with such a lethal sword style. Its power and range were not weaker than spells of the same level. That was the swordsmanship of an expert swordswoman. It was so powerful. Watson wondered if he could learn a similar sword technique after reaching the kingdom and becoming a grand swordmaster's disciple. Watson sighed inwardly. At the same time, he raised his hands toward Christina. "Miss Christina, let's talk, we don't have to fight. I can explain what happened just now." "I won't listen to any of your explanations unless you defeat me," Christina replied coldly, commanding the meteors to fall as they sailed into the sky. Those meteors were made of invisible sword aura. In comparison to real meteors, the sword aura's strength and speed were more horrifying, even more so when they were descending from the sky. The power contained in those sky-severing blade copies was much stronger. If those blades were to fall on the ground, they would riddle the earth with holes. Christina panted slightly after the attack. Sweat dripped from her forehead. It was apparent that that move had not been easy for her. Her gaze was locked onto Watson, wanting to see how he would resolve that move. You can only discover your own shortcomings in a battle with an elite. Come on, Watson, it's rare for me to unleash my full strength. Don't disappoint me. Watson sighed. If it's possible, I really don't want to fight. Miss Christina, you just said that as long as I defeat you, you'll listen to my explanation. Don't go back on your word. Watson looked up at the sky. Hundreds of sky-severing blades had already surrounded him. The ground under his feet had sunk several inches, it had been cut out of shape. There were also marks on his body, it seemed like his flesh was cut too. He felt as if his entire body would be hacked in the next moment. Absolute seal. Then, Watson released the diamond tier spell that he had learned. The rule for the spell was made when he fused the law of domain with magic. It could suck out all the magical elements within 100 meters around him. The moment he released the absolute seal spell, the sky-severing blade copies around his body disappeared one by one, turning into tiny specks of light that fused into the air. It was one of the strongest platinum tier sword attacks, but it was nothing to him. That's the second time that my sword aura has been dissolved so easily, right? Christina frowned. She would not be shocked if Watson employed a defensive tactic or launched a forceful attack to thwart her attack, but Watson made no such move. The sword aura she slashed forth instantly vanished from Watson's body. It was extremely similar to the predicament she encountered when she attacked Watson during the day. She wondered if Watson had some form of special magic that could disable his opponent's attacks. Since combat aura attacks are not effective, what about close combat? Christina did not believe that Watson's magic could eliminate her combat aura and physical attacks simultaneously. Her entire body turned into a blazing light. She transformed into a continuous flash of light and bounced around Watson, filling the air with a burning smell. Often, she would step on the ground and the surrounding walls with her bare feet, and she would be able to bounce far away. It was an element's body. It was an ability that only a peak gold tier warrior would be able to comprehend when they reached the threshold of platinum tier. It was also a rudimentary law of domain form. That move did not turn the surrounding space into a domain with specific attributes. Instead, it turned one's body into an element. The disadvantage was that it reduced the power and range of the attack. The advantage was that it was more flexible and unexpected. If he were an ordinary peak gold tier warrior, at Christina's pace, he would probably have already collapsed on the ground due to dizziness, foaming at the mouth. Watson, it appears it would be quite difficult for me to be your adversary if I were to face you directly. However, my most outstanding aspect is not my strength but my speed. You cannot attack me at this pace, but I can attack you indefinitely. How are you going to fight against me? Miss Christina, please don't jump around. My head is dizzy. Watson shook his head. The moment he did that, Christina turned around speedily and rushed in his direction. Christina shifted her path more than 10 times in mid-air, and a brilliant flash of lightning flashed past Watson's side. Platinum tier fighting technique, chaotic divine joy dance. Hundreds of fake Christina appeared simultaneously in mid-air. Each of them was executing the unique move as if they were each other's original bodies. Layers upon layers of phantoms sped past Watson's side, totally enveloping his body. The sonic boom shook the entire courtyard. It was quicker than the speed of sound. Confronted with the layers of dizzying phantoms surrounding him, Watson casually extended his palm to one of them and flicked it lightly. Pow! The phantoms that had taken over the sky vanished. Christina took a couple of steps backward, holding her right chest. She collapsed on the ground, her face contorted with embarrassment and disbelief. Watson's finger had flicked across the sensitive area of her right chest when a great force entered her body, numbing the entire left half of her body. She had no way of knowing if Watson had done it deliberately. That was not the main point of her thoughts. The main point was that because she had mastered the light elemental combat aura, her speed was faster than other people of the same level. Even an average platinum tier warrior would not be as fast as her. In addition, she had trained her physique all year round. Her fastest speed could reach several times the speed of sound, but Watson had easily found her real body. Did that not mean Watson was even quicker than her? How could that be possible? Light elemental combat aura was the fastest element, and the dark elemental combat aura that Watson had mastered was only slightly more bizarre. Watson, how did you discover my main body? You kept up with my speed. Christina asked the question in her heart. That's right, Miss Christina. I don't only have a dark elemental combat aura, I can also use light elements to create combat auras. Then, a huge light elemental domain appeared beneath his feet. The aura emitted by each weapon was stronger than that of the sky-severing blade. After that, the light under Watson's feet dissipated, and Christina was in a daze. She had become a platinum tier elite at such a young age. Furthermore, she had also mastered the two most challenging combat aura elements. The fact that she had learned the light and dark elemental combat aura simultaneously was enough to be praised as a peerless genius. The only person in the kingdom who could do that was her father, the Sword Saint. When he realized that Christina was intimidated, Watson walked up to her and extended his right hand. Miss Christina, my strongest ability is not in combat because I am a platinum tier mage. Do you still want to continue fighting? Those words were like a bomb, setting off huge waves in Christina's heart. A mage used a warrior's ability to defeat me. The corners of Christina's mouth twitched, and her expression seemed strange. She did not doubt Watson's words at all. A youth with such strength had to hide it on purpose, there was no need to make that up to deceive her. However, that fact was a little too depressing. Watson, you've won. It's my loss. I won't bother you about what happened just now. Christina hesitated for a moment and sighed. She knew that if she continued to fight, she would only bring humiliation upon herself. It was better to go back and digest the insights gained from that battle before looking for another chance to fight Watson. Her impression of Watson had changed. One could see a person's character through a battle. Watson did not take the opportunity to touch her during the battle, except when he touched her chest. That was an accident. After defeating her, Watson extended his hand toward her in a gentlemanly manner. If an ordinary man saw that, he would definitely covet her body. She was still very confident in her charm. Watson's ambush in the hot spring must have been a joke, Christina thought to herself. If it were true, she envied the woman that Watson had targeted. She must not be an ordinary woman if she could make Watson pay so much attention to her. After learning Watson's true strength, she wished she could bring him back to the Holy Sword Adventurer team and let him accompany her for training every day. She even wanted to let Watson join her in conquering the dungeon. With his help, she would have no problem conquering the maze's 100th level. With that thought, she reached out and grabbed Watson's hand to pull herself up. However, the numbness in her body had not faded yet. She slid off her feet. With a cry of surprise, she subconsciously grabbed the thing closest to her. Arg! Christina fell to the ground, staring blankly at a white towel in her hand. A dangling thing appeared in front of her, turning her expression from white to green. Then, she let out a piercing scream. No! Suddenly, a black shadow rushed into the hot spring. It was Nightingale, who looked furious. Young Master Watson, what are you doing? Who is this woman? What is your relationship with her? Watson looked down at his naked crotch and then turned to look at Nightingale, who was sweating profusely and had obviously just returned. He looked like he had nothing to live for. Nightingale, this is not a good time for your return. Chapter 286, both sides were shocked. So, it's Miss Christina, the so-called swordswoman. We meet again. Young Master Watson has already explained it to me. What happened just now was all a misunderstanding. I'm really sorry for accidentally misjudging you. Nightingale stood in a room in the Golden Quill Pavilion and bowed to Christina. It had been half an hour since the fierce fight in the hot spring. After Watson put on his clothes and explained to Nightingale until his mouth was dry, Nightingale finally believed that nothing had happened between him and Christina. You are worried about your master's safety, which I can understand, but it seems like you have a special relationship with your master. Christina was in a white robe and armor. She held a cup as she sipped it. Her eyes were looking back and forth between Nightingale and Watson, who were sitting opposite her, with a profound meaning. As the master, Watson did not need to explain anything to Nightingale. However, when Nightingale saw her and Watson naked in the hot spring, her first reaction was to question them, and as a maid, that was too bold. Christina felt like Nightingale had behaved more like Watson's other half than a maid. Christina's face reddened when she thought of the dangling stick between Watson's legs. She had been training since she was young, and that was the first time she had seen a naked man, even though Watson was only a teenager. Nightingale was expressionless while Christina thought about that. She coughed and said, "The relationship between young Master Watson and I is not ordinary, indeed. I used to be a shadow guard by Lord Sylvan's side at the border, and I only recently became young Master Watson's maid. Before that, I had been with young Master Watson for a long time. We're more like friends than a master and his maids." "Just friends?" Christina asked, but Nightingale did not answer her. Instead, she said, "That doesn't seem to have much to do with Miss Christina. If there is nothing else, please go back. Young Master Watson had just fought with you in the hot spring, and he's exhausted now." Nightingale did not have a good impression of Christina. Not only did Christina fight with Watson during the day, but she also chased him to the Golden Quill Pavilion and fought with him again after that. She did not know what she was up to. In addition, Christina saw Watson's penis, which made her even more unhappy. When she thought about how she and Master Antonio had worked hard to help Watson get rid of those persistent adventurers while Watson was kissing a strange woman in the hot spring, Nightingale could not accept it. No matter if it was from the perspective of a maid or a friend. Miss Nightingale, I don't plan to leave the Golden Quill Pavilion today because I broke the ground of the hot spring during the battle with Watson. Now I'm looking for someone to repair it. It's not the style of anyone from the Holy Sword Adventurer team to leave after destroying something. Christina smiled, her words made Nightingale's expression change. Lady Swordmistress, we'll pay for the restoration of the Golden Quill Pavilion. That's not much money anyway, so there's no need for you to spend on it. As the Holy Sword Adventurer team leader, there must be a lot of things for you to deal with in the team. How can you waste your time here? Miss Nightingale, you're too kind. The adventurer team doesn't have that many things for me to deal with. Besides, there's another reason for me to stay here, and that's Watson. Just now, he showed me something bad, so I decided to rest here. The Golden Quill Pavilion is a hotel, not a private place. Is it a problem for me to stay here? Christina turned her gaze away and saw Watson sitting on the big bed in the corner of the room with a bitter smile on his face. Miss Christina, didn't we have a bet during the day? You said that as long as I can withstand your sword, you wouldn't bother me anymore. Christina had acted too quickly when he was in the hot spring, so he did not have the time to think. Then, he realized that it was not that simple for Christina to appear in the hot spring. Perhaps, she was there for him. I'm not here to bother you. After all, I didn't force you to join the Holy Sword Adventurer team, nor did I send anyone to block the entrance. I just happened to bump into you by chance. A coincidence can't be called a bother, right? Miss Christina, it is meaningless to act like that. Let's not talk about other things. I heard that the Holy Sword Adventurer team's motto is virtue is greater than ability. You even taught Claude a lesson in the Adventurer Association so that he would be an honorable person. So, I thought that you were such a person, too. Perhaps you can only teach someone to do that but not follow the rules yourself. Of course not. Christina took another sip from her teacup and gave Watson a brilliant smile. Her smile was like a blooming flower. It caused the lights in the room to lose their color. My father taught me to be an honorable person, so I did the same. But my father also taught me another principle, and that is to be flexible in doing things. Be honorable, be flexible, and achieve something. Those were the original words. I'll get someone to add a bed in this room. I'll sleep here tonight. Watson, I hope you can wake up early tomorrow morning so that we can spar. I'm really looking forward to it. Looking forward, my *SS. Watson was speechless. His first impression of Christina was a cold, old-fashioned beauty, but he realized that he was wrong. That was only the surface of her personality. The real swordswoman was an intelligent martial arts fanatic. She would do anything to become stronger. No, you can't stay here. Please leave now, or else, Nightingale said. Or else what? You'll fight with me. Christina and Nightingale stood face to face. With a burning gaze, she said, that's exactly what I want. I can't wait for it. Your aura is not weak, so you should be a good opponent. Nightingale was speechless. She did not know how to respond to that. Christina was a woman who liked to fight. If she attacked her, she would fall into her trap. However, if she did not make a move, she would not be able to expel that woman. Just as Nightingale felt the onset of a headache, an excited man's voice suddenly echoed from outside the room. Young Master Watson, we're back. We've brought all of our savings. Leon has also borrowed some supplies from the St. Antilles Cathedral's bishop. I think these things are enough to transform us and our equipment into gold tier. If these things are not enough, we'll borrow more from the bishop. Clyde and his group had returned with more than 10 boxes of various sizes on their shoulders. They rushed into the room as they panted for air. They looked excited. Annie trailed behind them, and she was carrying more than twice the number of boxes they had. She complained, "Are you a man? You let a girl carry so many things just because she has advanced to gold tier. Clyde and the others saw Christina the moment they entered the room. They had not even seen Watson. The woman was sitting in the middle of the room sipping tea. They were stunned. As adventurers from the City of Steel, they knew who Christina was. They had not expected she would be there after they had left. Why is Lady Swordmistress here? They were not the only ones who were surprised. Christina, who was sipping her tea, was also stunned. Her face was filled with shock. What did you say? You want to use the items in those boxes to raise your strength and equipment to gold tier? What exactly is going on? Please explain yourselves. Chapter 287, 6 Consecutive Fusions. Lady Swordmistress, these are. Clyde hesitated. Just as he was about to explain, Annie interrupted him. Lady Swordmistress, did we say anything just now? What do you mean by raising our strength and equipment to gold tier? Did you hear us wrongly? Yes, yes, yes. Lady Swordmistress, you must have misheard us. Clyde suddenly snapped back to his senses and followed Annie's words as he wiped his cold sweat. Watson had dispatched Annie to follow them as they left the room. He had explicitly instructed them not to inform anyone about the equipment and strength boost, prompting them to borrow supplies from the St. Antilles Cathedral. They came up with the pretext that Leon had a woman he liked and urgently required a huge sum of money to get married. Only then did the cathedral's bishop graciously offer his funds and instructed them to bring the woman in 2 days so he could see her. Due to the disparity in rank, Clyde unconsciously wanted to respond to Christina's inquiry, and he almost let the cat out of the bag. Don't try to lie to me. I heard it very clearly just now. You said you wanted to raise your strength and equipment to gold tier. Christina's face exhibited a look that dared them to think of her like an idiot. She was a platinum tier expert, and she was not deaf. It was not that she had not heard what Clyde and the others had said, but she found it unbelievable. After all, the group in front of her was composed entirely of bronze tier adventurers. They could upgrade their equipment from bronze to gold tier, but it was nearly impossible for them to do so quickly. Even someone as talented as her could not have done it. Christina had initially believed that. However, after she realized how Clyde and the others were trying to conceal it, she became uneasy. If those people could not upgrade to gold tier, why would they hide it from her? Clyde and the others exchanged glances, unsure how to respond to Christina's question. They had no choice but to direct their pleading gazes toward Watson. They complained inwardly. They would not have entered the room screaming if they had known the swordmistress was there. Since they had stated such things, they could not explain them adequately, no matter how hard they tried. What if Watson was angry with them because of that? What if he refused to make gold tier tools for them or increase their strength? Watson sighed, aware of Clyde and the others' sorrowful gazes. Would you believe, Lady Swordmistress, if I told you that Clyde and the others were only joking? Do you think I would believe it? It seems that the answer is very obvious. Then, Lady Swordmistress, can you pretend that you did not hear what happened just now? I will give you a corresponding reward as the price for keeping the secret. Watson knew that Christina had caught him in a lie, and he could not hide the fact that he wanted to help Clyde and the others. It would be better to admit it openly. It's not impossible, but you have to agree to one of my requests. Christina's eyes narrowed as if she had thought of something, and a smile appeared on her face. What do you want, Lady Swordmistress? What I want is very simple. First, you have to spar with me every morning. At the same time, when the Holy Sword Adventurer team decides to conquer the underground city, you will have to come with us. You don't have to join my team, but you'll have to help me. What do you think? My conditions are very lenient, right? Watson nodded helplessly in response to Christina's question. I'll do as you say, Lady Swordmistress. Even though I have faith in your character, I am still unsure if this is merely a verbal agreement. Please draft a contract, Nightingale. Yes, young Master Watson. Nightingale glared at Christina with dissatisfaction, as if she was unhappy with her taking advantage of the situation. Then, she nodded respectfully at Watson before she turned around and left the room. A few minutes later, Nightingale returned with a contract. The contract's content was straightforward. Christina was not allowed to reveal everything she saw that day, and Watson would have to meet Christina's requirements. Both Watson and Christina signed the contract. Clyde, Arthur, and Leon acted like three children who had done something bad when they signed the contract. They stood far away and did not dare to speak. "Watson, I've already signed the contract. I promise that I will never tell anyone what I saw today. So, can you begin? I want to see how you'll improve their strength." Christina put down the pen in her hand. She looked impatient. She was well aware that Watson surpassed her in strength. However, being powerful and imparting strength to others were two distinct notions. Even Antonio, the greatest mage in the kingdom and had many disciples, did not dare to boast about that. He would never say that he could raise a bronze tier elite to gold tier in a short period. "Captain Clyde, please bring the things that you have obtained and place them in front of me." Watson did not respond to her, he just waved at Clyde and the other two men. Clyde and the other two men put the large boxes onto the ground without saying a word. They unlocked the boxes and revealed the contents. There were armor fragments, jewelry, and an abundance of medicinal herbs stacked together. There were at least thousands of them. "Young Master Watson, these are all the things we brought back. Are they enough?" Christina inspected the items in the boxes. She got increasingly perplexed as she looked at them. Most of the objects in the box were made of iron, with only a few bronze tier goods, including medicinal herbs. Initially, she assumed that the contents were at least silver tier. Then, Watson might use magic or other techniques to boost the weapon's quality. However, what appeared in front of her was only a heap of junk. What could Watson do with those items? While she was puzzled, she saw Watson sweep his gaze across the boxes and nodded in satisfaction. "Not bad. The items that you've brought back have exceeded my expectations. These items are enough for all of you to advance to the peak of gold tier and obtain equipment of the same level." "Really? Thank you so much, young Master Watson." Clyde and the others were in tears of gratitude. On the other hand, Christina's face was filled with disbelief. How could those junks be turned into gold tier equipment? If she had not just observed Watson's incredible strength, she would have assumed Watson was bragging. Watson was unconcerned by Christina's suspicious glance. He would not hold back since he had chosen to confess the truth in front of Christina. "System fusion, activate." He stretched his right palm outward and activated the system as he faced the enormous boxes in front of him. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, everything in the boxes transformed into streaks of light and flew into the air. They converged mid-air and fused, transforming into 6 completely different things that emitted a golden glow accompanied by a powerful aura. When Clyde and the others saw the fused items for the first time, they expressed excitement as they looked at the rays of light in front of them. Meanwhile, Christina's jaw was wide open. Chapter 288, The World's Most Unique Magic. What happened? Christina did not understand what had happened. Was that magic? Was it some sort of mysterious forging technique? As she speculated in her mind, her eyes reflected 6 various colors. She was speechless. She had seen Watson's strength, and she had believed that he was a genius. However, after that display, she thought that the young man must have transcended the category of geniuses. She had no idea what had happened in front of her. 6 items materialized in mid-air as the light faded. 3 of them were potions, and the other 3 items included a book, a longbow, and a circular shield. Additionally, those 3 weapons emitted a golden glow. The golden-edged books were written in mysterious and archaic runes. They flipped naturally, and the runes on them turned into light spots and flew out. They wound into chains and revolved automatically around the books. Additionally, the longbow was quite rare. The white jade-like skeleton was wrapped in gilded gold. On the two sides of the bowstring were two phoenixes flying high. Then, a layer of phantom flames streamed on top of it. The most remarkable thing was the round shield. The shield's front was inlaid with round gemstones per the constellations. Those diamonds emitted beautiful starlight that matched the stars in the sky, and it lingered around the shield. Those 3 peak gold tier weapons are the Book of Devout Saints, the Sky Hunting Bow, and the All-Creation Star Shield. They are suitable for priests, archers, and warriors, respectively. And those 3 potions can raise a person to gold tier. Their effects are similar. You guys can share them. Watson waved his hand. 3 peak gold tier weapons and 3 potions immediately flew in front of Clyde and the other 2 men. The 3 of them had a dreamy look on their faces as they looked at the floating objects in front of them. They were mentally prepared when they saw Annie's gold tier equipment and learned that she had ascended to gold tier. However, even after seeing what Watson had done, they continued to believe it was not real. Watson's approaches were beyond their comprehension. That is peak gold tier equipment. This is the first time in my life that I've seen such a level of equipment. Arthur stroked the sky hunting bow and pulled the bowstring gently. The phoenix sculptures on both sides of the longbow immediately came to life. They turned into 2 miniature phoenix phantoms and circled Arthur for a moment. Then, they gradually fused and turned into a golden and red spiral-shaped sharp arrow. Are the words in that book written in Loan? Isn't that the language used by the gods? I can't believe that young Master Watson actually understands them. Just looking at those words, I feel like my heart is one step closer to the gods. Praise the great God of light, praise young Master Watson. Leon held the Book of Devout Saints with both hands as he knelt on the ground with tears of excitement in his eyes. Done, done, done. Unlike the other 2, Clyde did not touch the peak gold tier weapon. The first thing he picked up was the potion that Watson had fused. Then, he gulped it down like wine, he did not even leave a single drop behind. After that, he wiped his mouth. A look of enjoyment appeared on his face, as though the potion was very delicious. Boom! After a few seconds, changes began to appear on Clyde's body. A majestic aura burst from his body, accompanied by a roar, causing 2 fissures to form on the room's floor. That aura was adequate to elevate him to the peak of the gold tier. Clyde vanished from his original location and reappeared in front of Watson with a light step. He knelt on one knee and bowed his head respectfully. Young Master Watson, I would like to express my gratitude to you once again. If it weren't for you, I might not have been able to advance to gold tier for the rest of my life. In return, from now on, no matter what you say, I will do my best for you. My life is now yours to use. Clyde did not know what to say to express the excitement in his heart. In the past, he was just an ordinary bronze adventurer. Then, Watson had raised his adventurer team to gold tier, and he had also successfully advanced to gold tier. He could already imagine the scene where he would be the center of attention and gain respect from everyone in the city. Watson had given him all of that. Without a doubt, Watson had given him a new life. Thank you, young Master Watson. Right after Clyde, Leon, and Arthur drank the potion one after another. A gold tier aura emerged from their bodies as they teleported in front of Watson and knelt on the ground. All right, you're welcome. Get up. Watson helped Clyde and the other 2 up one by one. While he did that, he heard a muffled bang from beside him. It seemed like something heavy had fallen to the ground. When Watson turned around to look, he discovered that Christina had dropped to the ground. She was rubbing her head. Lady Sword Mistress, what's wrong? Are you all right? I'm fine. I'm just a little dizzy. Christina held her forehead, her expression somewhat absent-minded. Watson had really done it. With her experience, she knew that the weapon Watson had created was at the peak of gold tier, indeed. Furthermore, the 3 of them had also successfully advanced from bronze to gold tier in a single step. She had painstakingly cultivated for almost 20 years before reaching the peak of gold tier. Watson had managed to shorten that process to a single moment. She felt that she had wasted her life in such a long cultivation period. If I had known Watson earlier and consumed that potion earlier, I might have progressed to platinum tier a long time ago. As she muttered in her heart, Christina used her extraordinary willpower to suppress the discomfort in her body. She looked at Watson with a strange gaze. What kind of monster was that young man? He could create a potion that could allow a person to advance to gold tier. Did that not mean that he could build an army of gold tier elites in a short period? As long as there were sufficient resources, the entire Holy Sword Adventurer team could become gold tier elites. Previously, Christina had only wanted Watson to enter the dungeon with her and help her clear the 100th floor, but she had changed her mind. It was probably an overkill to bring Watson to the dungeon with her. If she could get Watson to create a team of tens of thousands of adventurers, even if the number of layers in the underground maze doubled, they would be able to flatten it. Christina's heart burned with desire. She said, "Watson, I've never even heard of the method you used to create weapons and potions, let alone seen it. May I know the name of that magic? If it's convenient, can you teach me? I can pay you a lot of money." "No, I'm willing to transfer the entire Holy Sword Adventurer team to you as long as you can teach me that magic." Watson had used a pile of junk to create 3 peak gold tier elites. The Holy Sword Adventurer team had much more resources than that. One could only imagine how many people she could raise to gold tier. She could even rebuild the Holy Sword Adventurer team. If she could master that spell, she could create a new adventurer team that was 100 times stronger than the Holy Sword Adventurer team. Chapter 289, Antonio's Plan. Before we discuss whether or not I can teach you, Lady Swordmistress, please allow me to ask, aren't you a warrior? Can you learn magic? Watson asked curiously. Christina pursed her lips indifferently. Of course, I can't learn magic, but there are many mages in my family. They have pledged their loyalty to the Sword Saint family and swore absolute loyalty. As long as you can teach them magic, it is the same as if I learned it. I see. I wonder how many mages there are in the Sword Saint family. What are their strengths like? There are quite a few mages in the Sword Saint family. Some of them are especially powerful. Hundreds of them are below gold tier, and I know dozens who are gold tier and above. Those mages are not only trained by the Sword Saint family, but they are also members of the Palace Magic Diplomatic Mission. They are responsible for protecting the capital. Do you have any other questions? Other than those mages, are there any other elites worthy of attention in the Sword Saint family? Of course. After all, our family is known as the Sword Saint family, so mages are our weakest defensive force. The true elites are my senior brothers. As my father's outstanding disciples, some of them are even stronger than me. Wait, Watson, why are you asking me all this? What does that have to do with the magic that you are going to teach me? Christina realized that something was wrong and opened her eyes wide. Watson, on the other hand, revealed a regretful expression. He had wanted to use Christina to get more information from her. After all, he would head to the capital soon to become the Sword Saint's disciple. It would be good to know more before that. Miss Christina, that has nothing to do with the magic that I have mastered. I have to apologize to you. That magic is called fusion magic. It is unique in this world, only I can master it. Even if you want to learn it, I can't teach you. Watson shook his head. Since you can't teach me, then why did you ask so much just now? Christina was a little angry. Then, she got up from the ground. Watson, don't lie to me. What kind of magic only you can learn, but others can't? I've changed my mind. I want to add another condition for keeping your secret. You need to teach me that magic, or else I'll announce what you've done today. It was too magical. Even though she was a swordswoman and a platinum tier elite, she was still tempted. In addition, Watson had deliberately interrogated her for information, which made her very angry. She decided to repay the favor. Lady Sword Mistress, are you threatening me? This is not a threat. How can I do such a thing? This is a friendly negotiation. However, before we can discuss a suitable outcome, you need to make a small concession. Is that so? Watson had a strange look on his face. He shook his head and turned around. Nightingale, please escort our guest out. Before he left the border, he reasoned people would covet him due to the fusion system. Therefore, before he left the border, he deliberately raised his strength to peak platinum tier and turned every citizen at the border to the same level to avoid that kind of situation. Okay, no problem. Nightingale clenched her fists and made a cracking sound as if she had been waiting for that moment for a long time. She walked toward Christina with a malicious look and asked, Lady Sword Mistress, do you want to leave by yourself, or should I send you? You think you can make me leave by yourself? Christina sounded arrogant. She might have been afraid if Watson were the one who said that. How could a maid speak to her like that? Bang! Nightingale decided to use her punch as her response to her. That punch was as fast as a meteor, but it was even more powerful. Before her fist landed on Christina, half of the wall behind her was shattered by the whistling airflow. Christina widened her eyes. The violent wind filled her mouth and nose and made it difficult for her to breathe. You are platinum tier. Then, Nightingale's fist landed on her body, instantly turning her into a cannonball. She bounced past the broken wall and fell into the distant sky before turning into a small black dot. The swordswoman's figure had vanished. They could only hear the faint echo of her voice from the sky. Watson, how dare you treat me like this and attack me? I won't spare you. Lady Sword Mistress, please have a safe journey. I won't see you off. Also, this isn't a fight. It's a fist of friendship, but it's a bit powerful. You will need to bear with it. Nightingale had been displeased with Christina for quite a while. She had wanted to send Christina flying, but she could not act without Watson's order. Since she had received an order, she had nothing to worry about. Nightingale shook her fist and turned around to find everyone but Watson had stared at her in surprise. Their jaws were opened so wide that they would swallow a fist. She frowned and asked, What are you looking at? Then, Clyde and the others shivered. Clyde said with a trembling voice, Miss Nightingale, you just sent the Sword Mistress flying. She is from the Sword Saint family. They knew that Nightingale was very powerful, perhaps even stronger than Watson, but they did not expect her to be that powerful. She could even send Christina, who had just advanced to platinum tier, flying with only one punch. That proved that Nightingale was at least stronger than Christina. Of course, that was not what shocked them the most. What really surprised them was Nightingale's attitude toward Christina. Did she not know about Christina's identity? If people from the Holy Sword Adventurer team knew that their leader had been beaten up, they would flatten the Golden Quill Pavilion the next day. I did punch her. But what about the Sword Saint family? Are they very powerful? Nightingale dug her ears and asked indifferently. What about the Sword Saint family? She was from the border, and she had Master Antonio's support. Was the Sword Saint family not powerful? Clyde's face twitched. He wanted to ask her in return, but he decided not to say anything. Nightingale was so powerful that she even dared to hit the Sword Mistress. Clyde had made up his mind never to provoke Nightingale in the future. After that incident, he had a more profound impression of Watson's power. His maid was a platinum tier elite, and she did not even fear the Sword Saint family. Her courage alone was admirable. At that moment, outside the room, on the roof, Antonio was sitting cross-legged in front of a small wooden table on the eaves of the room. He raised his head and watched a shooting star fly across the sky as he revealed a faint smile. These young people really know how to make trouble. Master Antonio, why did you let young Master Watson come into contact with the swordswoman so early and expose his strength in front of others? Denise stood Antonio with a jade pot in her hand. She poured tea into a wine cup on the wooden table. Since his return, Antonio had been sitting on the Golden Quill Pavilion roof to take in the night scenery. He was also present when Clyde and the others went into the room moments ago. He could have prevented them from shouting or employed magic to muffle their voices, but he did not, which perplexed Denise. Antonio had asked Watson to hide his strength. Why did he turn a blind eye to the incident? Denise, don't worry. I have my own plans. Antonio picked up the teacup and took a sip. His eyes narrowed as he let out a satisfied sigh. So many years have passed, and the tea you make is still as delicious as ever. It seems like you did not waste that skill when you were envy in the Demonis bandit gang. Nurturing a person is like making tea. You can't be impatient. Do you understand that? After a moment of silence, Denise said, No, Master Antonio, I don't understand at all. Please speak more simply and directly. Antonio's hand paused. His face was no longer relaxed, and he was a little embarrassed. Denise, you are too uncooperative. Is what I said so difficult to understand? Besides, even if you don't understand, you can pretend to understand. There is no need to say that you don't understand so directly. Chapter 290, An Invitation from the Church. I'm sorry, Master Antonio. I don't quite understand. Why would I say that I know something I don't understand it? Isn't that a shameful act, pretending to understand even if I don't? Denise asked in confusion. What do you mean pretending to understand if you don't understand? Antonio choked and coughed twice. He only wanted to pretend to be knowledgeable in front of Denise to show off his power as the greatest mage in the kingdom, but Denise did not cooperate with him at all. You are already a platinum tier elite. Even though Watson forcefully promoted you, I would think that someone at your level could understand the thoughts of diamond tier elites. But now it seems that what I said was too profound for you. There is an insurmountable gap between the elites in the diamond and platinum tiers, indeed. Master Antonio, I feel that what you said has nothing to do with strength. It's just so simple that people can't understand it. Antonio coughed again. Denise, let's not talk about that. Don't you want to know why I deliberately exposed Watson's strength in front of Christina? I don't think I want to know. Denise looked like she was afraid of trouble. Hey! Antonio's expression relaxed after chatting with Denise for a while, and a flash of reminiscence suddenly appeared in his eyes. Denise, when I looked at you, I can't help but think of Queen Avril. I remember everyone in the kingdom respected me, but she was the only one who interacted with me normally as if she was my family. You look very much like her. Denise was silent. Perhaps it was because her strength had increased, or maybe because she had spent 2 years with Antonio on Mount Creation, but she knew that the mage was not as difficult to approach as he looked on the surface. That was why she dared to joke with him. I have a very simple reason for letting Watson expose his strength in front of Christina. I'm taking Watson to the royal city so that he can join the Royal Knight Academy. At the same time, I plan to hire the current Sword Saint to train him. Since he will become the Sword Saint's disciple, Christina will learn his secrets eventually. Since she wants to know, what is the difference between knowing now and later? I heard that even though the current Sword Saint is not like you, Master Antonio, who stays in the Temple of the Stars all day and doesn't see any guests, he still lives a secluded life. Furthermore, he has the same strict attitude toward accepting disciples as you do. Even if young Master Watson has outstanding talent, the Sword Saint might not value him as such. Master Antonio, you did that to let Lady Sword Mistress understand Watson's talent and then relay that information home to attract the Sword Saint's attention. Denise spoke tentatively as she praised Antonio's wisdom in her heart. As expected of a monster who had lived for hundreds of years, everything he did had gone through a long-term consideration. Yes, I did consider that, but that was not the main reason. I just want Watson to show his strength in front of Christina. After all, I consumed the Spring of Life water to help the founding emperor conquer his territory, resulting in me stuck in platinum tier for the rest of my life. The current Sword Saint, Frederick, that B***starred, often mocked me for that. I've been hiding in the Temple of the Stars for a large part of this reason. Now, I want to let him understand that I might not be as good as him in terms of cultivation, but I'm 100 times better than him in terms of nurturing disciples." When Antonio said that, a trace of uncontrollable anger and pride flashed across his handsome face, causing Denise to freeze on the spot. She initially thought that Antonio had thought it through before he did such a thing. She did not expect that it was to get even with the Sword Saint. That was too childish. "Denise, why are you keeping silent? Did you not understand my words again? That's right, every step of my plan is carefully thought through and extremely far-sighted. You are still young, so you might not understand it. Master Antonio, are you a child?" The next morning, Watson woke up lazily in his room and stretched his arms across the bed. A young girl in black was in bed with him. Her short black hair scattered beside her cheeks, forming a stark contrast with her snow-white skin. The young girl slept very soundly. Her long eyelashes on her kitten-like face trembled slightly. She was so beautiful that she looked flawless. It would not be good if he continued to stare at her anywhere below her face. The girl's black clothes were messy, and the quilt was scattered on the bed. It seemed like her hands and feet had their own ideas. They were in different places from different angles. One of her arms and one of her legs were pressed against Watson's body. As he moved away from her arms and legs, a helpless look appeared on Watson's face. "It looks like she didn't sleep well." After Nightingale dispatched Christina the previous night, he had wanted everyone to have a good rest. However, after Clyde and the others saw what Nightingale had done, they all declined his offer. They stated that they would remain in the adjacent room. Regardless of how persistently he invited Clyde and the others, they were unmoved. In the end, he had no choice but to stay in the same room with Nightingale. Furthermore, Nightingale had pulled out a few bottles of high-end red wine and said, "We're celebrating your promotion to Gold-tier adventurer, so you must drink it." She also mentioned that Watson could not use his strength to eliminate the alcohol. As a result, Nightingale was so drunk that he had to help her to bed. Initially, Watson had wanted to sleep somewhere else, but after Nightingale fell onto the bed, she held his fingers tightly. He had no choice but to sleep with her. "Ah!" Nightingale let out a faint moan as if she had sensed Watson's movements. She got up from the bed slowly, rubbed her sleepy eyes, and looked around the room. When she realized that she had been sleeping with Watson, she screamed, "Whoa, why am I here? I didn't drink too much last night, did I?" "You drank too much last night? I didn't do anything strange to you last night, did I? Did I say anything strange?" Nightingale sounded a little nervous. "You didn't do anything strange, but you said a lot of strange things. I heard you call your parents' names about 200 times, and you also called for someone else." "Who? Me? I heard you call my name 808 times. Nightingale, I really want to know what you dreamed about last night." Watson looked interested, but Nightingale blushed and did not say anything else. Instead, she lowered her head. Then, he said, "Nightingale, you know that you are going to the underground maze today, and yet you still dared to drink so much. Should I punish you?" Watson was joking. However, Nightingale did not refute him. Instead, she raised her rosy cheeks, propped her hands on the bed, and leaned her head toward him. "Then, young Master Watson, what punishment are you going to use on me?" The girl's pink lips reflected a faint luster under the sunlight. A soft wine fragrance accompanied by the girl's unique scent wafted from her lips and entered Watson's nose. It made his body feel a little hot. Their eyes met at a close distance, and their bodies were so close to each other. "It looks like you are the same height as me, Nightingale." The 18-year-old Nightingale was about 1.6 meters tall, and the 12-year-old Watson was about the same height because he had been exercising all year round. She was not tall, but her face was also adorable. He had been with Nightingale for several years, but he had not noticed that before. Nightingale's eyes were like water waves, reflecting his face. He wanted to explore the secrets of those eyes in depth. Suddenly, they heard the door open. Leon, the team's priest, sported a brand new monocle in his left eye. He clutched the Book of Devout Saints in his hand, which Watson had fused for him the previous day. He rushed excitedly into Watson's room. "Young Master Watson! Do you know about the St. Antilles Cathedral? It is the same location as the one I mentioned yesterday for borrowing money. Now the cathedral's bishop wants to see you. You." He stopped mid-sentence when he noticed that Watson and Nightingale were sitting very close to each other on the bed with an awkward look on their faces. He immediately slammed the door shut. "I'm sorry, young Master Watson. It seems like I've come at a bad time. Please continue. I'll leave." Then, only the two of them were left in the room. Watson and Nightingale looked at each other and saw the awkwardness in each other's eyes. Watson hesitated for a moment, then got up and chased after the man. "Leon, wait!